Hi, Sasha and Adele. I'm Ezelle from the upcoming. It's
Oh,
really lovely to meet you.
likewise. You have
So Adele,
exquisite hair. Can I
It
just
is
get,
amazing.
I just want to get that in quickly. Beautiful, exquisite hair.
oh, thank you so much. I actually do it
Gorgeous
myself. Thank you.
Awesome.
So Adele, perhaps I could start with you. Could you sort of tell us a little bit about what the image of you is about, and what inspired you to write it, and then obviously how it feels to have it made into a film adaptation?
Yes, so the interview is about twin girls who are utterly identical. They are 31-year-old. They've one of them, Anna, is a hopeless romantic. She just thinks the world is a really great place, and more importantly, she thinks finding somebody else like a soulmate will make it utterly perfect. Now, I would suggest that's a relatively naive view of life, but somehow she has maintained that view at 31-year-old. Her twin sister, Zoe, is, I guess, whilst they're physically exactly the same, in terms of experience and things that have happened to the girls, that there has been something in their past that has been very different. And Zoe is very different human being. She is cynical, she's confident, she doesn't think anybody can complete her world, and she doesn't really think anybody should. She knows she is her world. She's sexy, she's outrageous, she's disruptive. All would be fine because they do love each other enormously, except Anna online finds what she thinks is the perfect man, and because Zoe will not accept there is such a thing as a perfect man, she chooses to test him, and that ends in all level of horror. Yes, of chaos. Yes.
Chaos.
So that's the premise. To your question of how did it come about? How did it feel to go from book to film? I am not an author that has spent my entire life hoping that my books would become films. I love my books and they are my books, and that's perfect for me. I love the private dialogue between the words on the page and the reader. You could even say the writer and the reader, but it's actually the words on the page. But when I became I write a book once a year, and I have done for 23 years, and that's a lot. That's busy.
Crazy.
So I didn't really have the capacity to think about what would it be like to have a film, etc., until I became an empty nester. So my son was born the same year as my first book, so he's now 23. So when he was sort of 18, 19-year-old, I realized I was an empty nester and I had this capacity. So I met with a producer called Brad Cravoy, and he absolutely was so encouraging. I pitched 4 ideas to him. He optioned all 4, but told me at the time, look, no one at this point in your career is going to be as passionate about these projects as you. If you want this to happen, you need to make it happen. He introduced me to an extraordinarily lovely human being, Chris Silverstone, who is the screenplay writer. And we had this terrific time, especially considering it was in lockdown, where we would Zoom and we would talk about the script, and he would send me his script and I would send back notes. And this process went backwards and forwards for several months. And I think we got a really exciting script at the end of it. A lot of it was quite different from my original book, but I wanted that because I'm very aware that the book is the perfect form for this private dialogue, but a movie, the way it's made and the way it's consumed, is teamwork and communal. So I wanted something sort of bigger and bolder with other people's passion and vision, which means, the talent, the director, the set designers, the costume, the people who do costume, the photographers, everything needs to be part of that communal process. And we were lucky enough to get Sasha attached to the project. And then after Sasha was attached to the project, it just took on a life of its own.
And Sasha, obviously coming to you, playing that sort of dual role of both Zoe and Anna, I mean, that is a big ask for you. So what was the appeal of the script? And then did you go back into the story, or I don't know if you read it beforehand, to kind of get a little bit more about the story arc before you played them?
Yeah. So I feel like it'd be hard to find an actor that wouldn't want to play twins. And the reason is because you get to develop 2 people, especially 2 characters that are very different. you want to create a different tone of voice and a different walk and a different way of standing, and their personalities, their style, everything needs to be believably different. And that in itself is just so fun. These characters they're just so interesting, and there's so many layers to them. And it's a treat to kind of create the things that you don't see on screen or don't, read on the page. You're creating a whole person, and that's much bigger than just, a couple of lines, which is what a book does. A book is bigger in that respect and really helps you understand a person. So to make those two things happen when you're watching a movie can be difficult. I actually did not read the book until after, because I didn't want to taint it. And it wasn't because Anna and Zoe. Well, it wasn't because Anna and Zoe that I wouldn't have, gotten anything out of it by any means. Obviously, those characters are so special, but I think it's important to have a little bit of a uniqueness, to embody everything that is supposed to come from those characters on the page. Mm-hmm. But you can get too in your head about it if you're trying to copy something versus create something. And I think that's why having you on set was remarkable, because I could check in with you and say, does this feel right? Does this feel like your girls? Does this make sense? Is there anything I can adjust? Because I want to do everybody justice. Everybody that loves the book so much, I don't want them to watch the movie and be like, "Oh, I didn't like that."
You did do it justice. And the girls in the book are British. So I didn't, and we immediately, because is not, he's American. So the very first script, I think, not even the full script, the just first few pages, he had them British. And I was like, that's not authentic. It's not authentic, because we speak the same language, but we don't speak the same language. So we immediately reset them and popped them in the States. And I think that's why it was a good idea for you not to read the book first, because I think the Nick character, even though he was English and becomes American, there's less variance from the book to the screen. But I think with the girls, I keep referring to the twins as the girls, I don't know why, but with the girls, they needed to, it's so good that you have me convinced that there's somebody different to you, that I have you here and Sasha's two people. That's good. But with Anna and Zoe, because they went from the UK to the States, I think it was a good idea not to read it till afterwards.
Yeah. And I think there's an importance there for people that love the book. And that's why it's like, if you know the ending and if you know everything about these characters, there's no surprise, and you're constantly going to be comparing it. But if you can understand the journey and love that book and want to see it become a movie and then have it be a little bit different and you don't know exactly what to expect, it's exciting and it's fulfilling, because you still feel the same way about those characters, but it's coming alive in a different way than when you had that relationship, like you say, with the book.
And there are certain lines in the movie that, as I hear them, I think, I know when I wrote those into the novel. Like, I can literally remember, even though I wrote the novel 7 years ago, I can remember I know where that came to me. Because I think the most attractive thing for me with Zoe is Zoe always has the one-liners that in real life we all think about.
Right, but never
5 minutes later. And she's there with the sass talk, and she's just so funny. And Sasha, that.
Thank you. So fun.
Sasha, obviously you get to do these steamy scenes with, Parker Young, who, he's easy on the eye, I'm not going to lie. So what was that like? Obviously for him, that was quite challenging, swapping between those two kind of personas as well. So what was that collaboration like with him?
Well, I think it first starts as friends, right? And when you're filming a movie like this, you only have about a month and a half of actual filming time. So it has to be fast friends. And I think those things, they can go either way, right? And having scenes that are intimate, that can become really, really difficult if you're not on the same page. And I think we immediately were on the same page. We have lots of similarities. We're both married. We both have young kids. We've known our partners for a long time. And I think that even just in the very beginning is like, okay, there's nothing to worry about. Let's be friends. Let's really work on these characters. And our intimacy coordinator was incredible. And the three of us, not only did we laugh an incredible amount, and also there's foam between you sometimes. There's things glued to you. Like it's not like you're, okay, let me get sexy with this person. There's a lot of things that go into it, and it becomes funny. And if you can create and choreograph something that feels natural and kind of know what you can and cannot do and still create some realistic things in there, that's when it works. And so it's a complicated thing. There's a lot of structures there, but I mean, there's a scene where I was struggling to undo his belt, and then you just laugh. You're like, what can you do? This is just, yeah, here we are.
Try harder.
I remember watching the chemistry develop, actually,
Yeah.
and the relief that
That it
you know
worked.
that you
Yeah.
both worked, and it was really obvious you were caring about one another. Just, you know, of the like, oh,
Yeah.
have you got water? Are you happy on set? You know, all that kind of thing. It's a big help, and I think we've talked about it before that obviously Sasha had to be two very different people, and equally Parker had to respond as though he was two very different women.
Yeah, he did such a great job with that. And I think there's a power aspect to it as well. You know, him and Anna, they were very sweet and soft together, and they had this different type of spark. And not that he would ever take control of her, but it was very, I would say, more even and more caring. And then with Zoe, it was like Zoe took control of everything. And so that response is different. And I think that both of us did a good job letting each other, we just did that. It was like, actually, to be fair, he didn't really have a choice. When I was Zoe, I took her on purpose, and I think it got the right, right. But with Anna, it was a different type of caring nature. And I think just having fun establishing those things really work on camera. But you're right. We were attentive. We were checking in. And I think it's a relationship in a lot of different ways. You know, you're getting up early, or, you know, something happened that made you unhappy or made you happy. And you are every single day spending more time with that person and that crew more than, you know, your family or your friends. And so I think it's important to be on the same page and to communicate specifically for people that are playing characters that are intimate together.
And I think, well, I'm actually a twin myself, which is really funny. So I love stuff. I started right from like Sweet Valley High, twins back in the day, and I love it. So it's quite interesting because you're right. You captured that twins are really different, as I am with my sister. So obviously capturing that, finding the right cast. When you've got Mira, Savina, and Nesta Cravenel on board, as well as Sasha and Parker. Is that, as you see it come to life, Adele, are they sort of how you imagined your characters anyway, as they step off the page onto the screen? I think
it was almost, I'm pretty good at letting things go because I have done 23 books in 23 years. So you write a book and you move on. Yeah. So I think by the time I came back to writing the script, working with the script writer and writing the script for this, and then seeing it cast, I was open to going, okay, let's see what you present. And if something had come to me that I would have gone, I just can't see that, I would have spoken up, but that didn't happen. Everybody who was presented to me, I was like, oh my gosh, yes, that is, why would I have ever said anything else? If I could rewrite the book now, I would physically describe, which I don't really physically describe people, but I would physically describe Sasha. I would physically describe Parker. I think sort of what happened for me is I remember coming on set first day of filming, and I'm normally, I don't know, I filled up. I literally filled up and thought, wow, this is overwhelming. Look at how many people are here. All because of a long time ago, I sat in an empty room and wrote this book. And now all these people are involved in this creativity and in this project. And then it's sort of respect and hats off to watch those people create their art. My art was putting the words on the paper. And then I have to step back and watch Sasha become Zoe, Sasha become Anna, Parker become Nick. And as that happens, I couldn't imagine it ever taking a step back. And I think now people need to read the book before the 13th, when the film comes out, because the minute the film comes out, you will read the book afterwards and only see you. So if they want to see one blank canvas, they need to do it now. If they want to see you, they need to wait till they've seen the film and then read it then. I think because it's true. I've read it since. Because I went back to kind of double check what was in the book and what was in the film. So I read it afterwards, and I read it and all the way through. The voices were was Sasha.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
Even though
I
they
think
are
about that.
British, I suddenly was like, yeah, but she would say it this way.
These are really that's that really
It's
funny
yours now.
twist.
Yeah.
I love it.
Sasha, obviously being in Pretty Little Lies previously to this, you know, you've gone down the crime sort of genre with that a little bit as well. So is it something that really appealed to you about this? And what was it like kind of filming those kind of gory horror scenes that we see go on? Were they kind of your favorite moments on set?
Yeah, they're so fun. And I think it's just because it's far from reality. It really is. It's like, yeah, on Pretty Little Lies, I got buried alive. I was, you know, tortured in a mental institution. And I went to jail. I mean, I did so many different things on that show that I feel like I do kind of look for it. You know, if something could be, I don't like doing dull things. Yeah, exactly. I like the extremes. I like the challenge. I like being something that is outside of myself. And yes, Allison and Zoe, as much as they are similar, they do really have that. I'm drawn to them because they're so opposite of the things that I would do, you know. And it's fun to put on that cap. It's fun to step in those shoes. And like you said, I love that, you know, she says lines where she says things, you know, when people would only think about it 5 minutes after, or wouldn't have the balls to say it actually, you know what I mean? And she does, and she just lets it out there. And that confidence it's sexy, it's appealing. Now in reality and practice, when it comes to what makes a person that way and the parts of the toxicity of that, that's where I feel like you get that fascination where it's like, oh, interesting. You can only be that way fully if there are things that have happened to you to make
it's a
it
level
that
of
way.
damage.
Right.
Yeah.
It comes from a place of damage, and it's a mask in a lot of ways. As much as it's a persona, it's very much like it's a flaw. It comes from a flaws that from you or something that's happened to you. And so to dissect those characters, I'm rambling now. To dissect those characters are really, really fun. And yes, the answer is I'm drawn to them, and I think those are fun. Those are my first choice, I would say. Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you guys so much for speaking to me. Congratulations. Good luck with it all. I absolutely loved it. And I can't wait to read the book. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you.